Congressman Rich McCormick. He is a member of the House Armed Services and Foreign Affairs Committees. He's also a veteran, served in the U.S. Marines. Great to see you, Congressman.
Good to see you, too. Thanks for having me.
All right, so what do we need to hear from the president tonight?
It'd be interesting to hear what he considers the conclusion of this war. The nice thing is he keeps people guessing, keeps the enemy guessing, because a lot of people confuse what he says. In other words, oh, can he just make up his mind? Are we done? Are we going further? Are we going to take Carg Island? Are we going to take the Straits? Or are we just done with this war and we're going to leave? This keeps the enemy off footing. It's very hard to plan if you're an enemy cell, if you don't know what the president's going to do, if you don't know what the military is going to be ordered to do. I think it's kind of genius in many ways. But I think ultimately, I would like to see the nuclear weapon, or at least the weaponized uranium, to be given over as part of the deal, because I think that's the thing that keeps us all awake at nighttime.
Yeah, they got to give over their uranium. They got to get the Strait of Hormuz open up again. President Trump specifically talking about that. He also is reportedly considering pulling out of NATO. We heard a lot of talk about this as well, President Trump, and we heard Marco Rubio, our Secretary of State, as well, really kind of pushing our NATO allies to be more open to helping us out. They won't allow, many of these NATO countries will not allow our planes and helicopters to fly over their airspace.
Yeah, it is frustrating. I remember the same thing during France. France did the same thing to us when we went after Libya. And Muammar Gaddafi created a lot of bad blood. I've seen this time and time again with different nations. It is frustrating when people don't agree with us. Of course, that's their right. But the president knows how to assert a little pressure on them. We have controlling votes of NATO, though. And I think traditionally it's a very germane institution that has applicability, especially in Ukraine and what we're trying to achieve there. I'd hate to leave them, but at the same time, I want them to pull their weight. I want them to step up to the plate. I want them to, with a collective $20 trillion economy, take on Russia with a $2 trillion economy. I think it's really important that they step up to the plate and stop hiding behind the United States and then pretending like they're not on the same side when we go to war.
Yeah, we'll see if they get that message. Pretty stubborn, these European countries. Let's talk about President Trump today, going from the White House up to the Supreme Court on top of Capitol Hill. What do you think about the move?
I think it's also one of the, this is a guy who makes history constantly. This is one of the most instrumental rulings of all time. The question is, I was listening to the arguments on your station right before going on, and it's fascinating. It actually makes me want to go to law school, because what's at stake is so important to the future of this country, how the Constitution was designed and how you get citizenships. Citizenship throughout history, it doesn't matter what society you've ever been in. When it's Roman history, to get your citizenship was a big deal. The protections you get, the financial benefits is a big deal. It's not earned when you're born here, I get that, but it was never intended to be stolen because you illegally invaded somebody, and then let's say you had soldiers that invaded the United States and had babies here because some soldier got pregnant. Is that what you want counted as citizenship? You can make all kinds of comparisons. We know that Dred Scott application to the 14th Amendment. We understand why slavery has application, but they're trying to say, matter of fact, that one argument right before it went on air basically said, hey, look, there's no way, even if you voted unanimously by Congress, you cannot amend the Constitution to deny anybody who's been born here citizenship. I think that's a ridiculous argument.
I want to play a clip from President Trump. This is the president talking about birthright citizenship. Here he is.
We're talking about slaves from the Civil War. And if you take a look at when it was filed, all of this legislation, all of this, everything having to do with birthright citizenship, it was at the end of the Civil War. The reason was it had to do with the babies of slaves and the protection of the babies of slaves. It didn't have to do with the protection of multi-millionaires and billionaires wanting to have their children get an American citizenship. It is the craziest thing I've ever seen. It's been so badly handled by legal people over the years.
And that's really it right there, is that the system is being abused. And if we don't do anything to fix it, it's going to, eventually lead to a lot worse problems.
A lot of pregnant women came over the border just to have babies here. Some would return back to their countries with that birth certificate intact so they could have future citizens. Imagine during that 10 million person onslaught during the Biden administration, people who literally snuck across the border, had babies here, who could be potential terrorists. Literally terrorist cells being conditioned here in the United States. There's all kinds of abuses that we haven't even considered. But certainly, the Constitution wasn't designed to abuse this great nation and its citizenship, which I think was hard-earned, especially during the time that the Constitution was framed.
Yeah. No other country, no other developed country, I should say, in the world has an immigration policy as lax as ours. We got to fix it. Congressman Rich McCormick, great to see you as always. Thanks so much.